It started with silence. Not the kind that comes after a long day or when two people fall into routine. No, this silence felt heavy, like something unnamed had entered our home and quietly taken its place at the dinner table. I didn't want to believe it. I held on to the idea that maybe we were just tired, maybe life had just worn us thin. We both worked long hours. I managed logistics for a construction supplier. She was in marketing for a firm downtown. We passed like ships, sometimes exchanging kisses that felt more like habits than affection. But things had changed. She stayed late more often. Said there were meetings, last-minute deadlines, clients who demanded her attention. Her phone, once left openly on the counter, was now always face down. Password protected. Silent. Our conversations grew shorter. She smiled less. When I reached for her in bed, she would turn gently and say she was too tired. At first, I didn't think much of it. But over time, those little moments started to add up like tiny cracks in a foundation you didn't know was breaking. The first real blow came on a Saturday. She had taken the car for groceries. When she returned, I helped unload the bags, and that's when I noticed it, something tucked between the seat and the center console. A small, lacy item that didn't belong to her. I knew every piece of clothing she owned. This wasn't hers. I didn't say anything. Instead, I placed it gently back where I found it and pretended I hadn't seen a thing. But something inside me shifted. From that day on, I started to pay attention. I noticed how her eyes avoided mine when she spoke. How she checked her phone in the bathroom. How she smelled different when she came home. Not bad, just unfamiliar. I didn't confront her. I wasn't ready for the truth. But I already knew it was coming. I had to know. Not for confrontation. Not for revenge. Just to look the truth in the eye and stop pretending. She was too careful for text messages. No names popped up. No slips in conversation. But habits leave trails, and I started following them quietly, methodically. I bought a prepaid phone, something simple. Installed a tracking app. One morning, while she was in the shower, I slipped it into the hidden compartment of the car's trunk. It took less than 10 seconds. My hands didn't even shake. That night, she said she had dinner with a client, some agency out of town looking to expand. I nodded, kissed her cheek, told her to drive safe. Then I waited. Around 6:40 p.m., the tracker pinged. She wasn't heading to the restaurant she mentioned. Instead, she turned off the main road, toward the edge of town. I gave her 20 minutes, then I followed. It felt like driving into a dream, slow, surreal, detached. She parked outside a bar. I parked a block away, far enough not to be seen. I waited. At 7:03 p.m., she stepped out. She wasn't alone. He was tall, confident. They hugged like it wasn't the first time. She laughed in a way I hadn't seen in months. He kissed her forehead, then her lips. I should have felt rage. But all I felt was emptiness, like watching the end of a movie you'd already guessed. No music. No climax. Just confirmation. They stayed for an hour. Talked, touched, leaned in close. Then they left together. Not toward separate cars. Toward one. Toward a motel down the road. I didn't follow them inside. I didn't need to. I turned the car around, drove home in silence. By morning, I'd made my decision. I was going to disappear. I didn't leave with drama. No shouting, no broken glass, no accusations. Just quiet steps, a packed bag, and a note that said everything I had left to say. Don't look for me. You already let me go. I left the keys on the kitchen counter, turned off the lights, and walked out. It was still dark when I hit the highway, driving west without a real plan. No destination. Just distance. The further I got from the life I had known, the lighter my chest began to feel, like each mile peeled off another layer of heaviness. Somewhere in the hills of northern Arizona, I stopped for gas and coffee. The clerk was an older guy, long gray beard, warm smile. Noticed the packed car and the tired eyes. Asked if I was heading somewhere or running from something. I told him, both. He handed me a paper flyer. A small trailer sat on the edge of his cousin's land, an old hunting spot, rarely used, cheap rent. No internet, barely a phone signal. I didn't hesitate. I drove out there the next morning. It wasn't much. Rusted steps, peeling paint, a creaky door and a broken heater. But it was mine. Mine in the way nothing else had been in a long time. The first few nights were the hardest. The silence was different, not heavy like before, but deep. Total. It forced me to sit with my thoughts, and they weren't kind at first. Regret, anger, doubt, all of it came in waves. But slowly, that silence started to feel like something else. Peace. I fixed the heater. bought groceries from the small town nearby, introduced myself to the woman at the hardware store and the guy who ran the diner. No one knew who I was. And for the first time in years, I could finally breathe. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into quiet months. I found a rhythm in the simplicity. Wake up early. Make coffee on the old gas stove. Run the trail behind the ridge until my lungs burned in the cold morning air. Work odd jobs, repairs, deliveries, cutting wood. Cash only. No questions. The people here didn't pry. They nodded, waved, invited me to community breakfasts without asking for a backstory. It was exactly what I needed. Not sympathy, not concern. Just space. At night, I'd sit on the porch with a blanket and watch the sky. Out here, the stars don't compete with city lights. They fill the sky like they're trying to remind you how small you are, and how little your pain really weighs in the grand scheme of things. I stopped checking my phone for messages. Eventually, I changed the number, deleted my email. No one from that life knew where I'd gone, and I kept it that way. She never tried to call. Or maybe she did. Either way, I didn't look. The pain didn't vanish overnight. Some mornings I'd wake from dreams where things were still okay. Breakfast on the patio, her laughter in the kitchen, and I'd feel it all over again, raw and immediate. But the weight started to shift. It wasn't crushing anymore. Just something I carried in my pocket. A memory, a lesson. I started sleeping through the night again. I stopped replaying that moment in the parking lot. And one morning, as I stood with a coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the frost-covered trees, I realized something simple but true. I didn't miss her anymore. Not really. Not the way I thought I would. It had been nearly a year. By then, the days had softened. The pain was just a quiet echo. I'd built something small, but real, friendships, a bit of routine, peace. Then I saw her name in my inbox. I created a new email, mostly for work. No social media, no traceable accounts. But someone must have said something. A name dropped, a town mentioned. Her message was short. I think I found you. Please talk to me. I didn't reply. 2 days later, I saw her, in person. She walked into the diner where I worked mornings. Same brown hair, but pulled back. She looked thinner, older somehow. Her eyes scanned the room until they landed on me. I didn't move, didn't speak. She walked over slowly. Can we talk? She asked, voice trembling. I told her no, that I was working. She left a note with her number and left. That night, I stared at the paper, thought about throwing it away. But part of me was curious, not hopeful, just curious. I texted one word, tomorrow. We met at a bench by the lake. Wind was sharp, sky gray. She sat beside me, but kept her distance. She started talking almost immediately. Told me everything. How the affair ended months after I left. How the man she thought she loved walked away once things got real. How friends turned cold. How her job changed, and how she couldn't focus. Couldn't sleep. I ruined everything, she said, eyes red. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I listened. She cried. And somewhere deep inside me, I felt nothing. Not hate. Not joy. Just quiet. She kept talking about memories, regrets, second chances. Her voice cracked when she said my name. Her hands shook as she reached for mine. But I didn't move. Not because I wanted to punish her. Not because I still carried anger. But because something in me had changed so completely, there was no path back. I looked at her, really looked, and realized I didn't recognize her anymore. She wasn't the woman I married. And I wasn't the man who stood by her side, blind to the quiet erosion of trust. I know I don't deserve anything, she said. But I had to try. I nodded slowly. You're right, I said. You don't. She looked down, biting her lip. I could see the tears building again. I was lonely, she whispered. I was scared. I made the worst mistake of my life. I believe you, I replied. But that doesn't change what happened. We sat in silence for a long while. Then I spoke the truth, plainly, without malice. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not here to fight. But you lost something you can't get back. Trust doesn't grow back. It dies. Quietly. And once it's gone, so is everything else. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her coat. I still love you, she said. I didn't respond. Because what I felt wasn't love. It was closure. Eventually, she stood. Waited a moment, as if hoping I'd stop her. I didn't. She turned and walked away, her figure growing smaller against the gray sky. And I just sat there, watching the still water, the cold wind tugging at the trees. It was over. For good. The day she left town, I didn't feel triumph. I felt stillness. That evening, I walked the dirt trail behind my trailer, up to the ridge where the trees open and the sky feels bigger than you remembered. I stood there for a long time, watching the wind move across the tall grass like waves. It had been a year since I disappeared, since I let go. I thought about the man I used to be, the one who waited for her to come home, who smiled through the silences, who made excuses for the distance. He wasn't weak, just loyal in a way that nearly broke him. But he was gone now. The life I built here wasn't dramatic or loud. It was simple. It was mine. I worked with my hands. I learned the names of birds. I helped a neighbor rebuild his porch. I drank coffee without checking the time. I remembered who I was when no one was looking. People in town still didn't ask questions. They respected privacy here. They knew loss lived in quiet people. And in return, I gave them the version of myself that was real, not bitter, not broken, just present. Some nights, I still dream. But they're not nightmares anymore. Sometimes they're just blank, peaceful. And when I wake, I don't reach for anything. I just get up, pour my coffee, and open the door to the trees and sky. I don't belong to the past now. I don't belong to regret, or to the version of love that once held me hostage. I belong to myself. And I am free.